Facebook. Everybody ready?
Ready?
All right, Tony, tell us when.
We are live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April Port Royal Workshop. Our first order of business tonight is we have a couple of boards and commissions that we will be interviewing people for this evening. The first one we'll be doing is the MPC Commission. And we have two applicants that we've asked us to join us tonight. The first one that we are going to interview is Wendy Czar. Wendy, are you with us?
Unmute.
Okay, I'm on mute. I am here. Hi. everybody.
Mayor, we have three individuals for the Metro Planning Commission.
Do we have one that's done for both? That's right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yep, there's Mayor now. I see her. Okay, Wendy, you're up first. Kind of, what we'd like to know from you is why are you interested in the board and what it is that you think you can bring to the town and its commission?
I'm interested in the board because I'm interested in zoning and land use, and I've spent a lot of time over the years following it. When I moved to Sheldon in 1992, by 1994 is when the comp plan started, and I lived in the unincorporated area. I got very involved in being on committees to draft the ordinance for the comp plan. I attended literally all of the planning commission meetings for probably 15 years until I moved to Beaufort. And when I moved to the city of Beaufort, I was on the redevelopment commission for a while, and that was at the time that they were developing the city master plan. The civic master plan, I think, is what they actually officially called it. And so I've followed zoning and land use for a long time. I'm pretty familiar with zoning ordinances and how to read them. And I think that I would bring, first of all, I'm pretty far up the learning curve. I already am familiar with a fair amount of things involving zoning and the commissions. And I think I would really like to represent the town of Port Royal and serve the community.
Tell the grand jury about his criminal record, and then in answer to her question, you not only failed to tell the grand jury.
We need somebody to mute themselves. We're hearing a lot of background noise. Wendy, thank you. And Councilman, does anybody have any questions specific for Wendy?
I have none at the moment.
Very good. All right, so the next person for the MPC is David Strange. David, you can unmute yourself. Wendy, if you can mute yourself and kind of,
Okay.
you heard a little bit of what we're looking for and trying to get a little bit of your background and why you want to serve the community.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. It's nice to be with you. Lynn and I moved down here in 2016. I bought our property in 2013, and that was my first introduction to the town of Port Royal and the zoning ordinances and the building development plans, and interacted with a number of folks. So it was my first great experience. And I was immediately thankful that I was going to live in the town of Port Royal as opposed to in the unincorporated neighborhoods that were immediately around it. My background is that I spent virtually all of my both growing up and adult life in metropolitan Philadelphia. And after getting out of college, I spent 4 years with a family business. It was an electrical contracting business. Parted ways philosophically with my dad after about 4 or 5 years of that. And then I spent 15 years with a major manufacturing company in a number of marketing and sales positions, working through the planning and an awful lot of development, both of product and of marketing plans for industries, including the power utility industry, and probably most importantly, from a background standpoint, the as-built data and telecommunications burgeoning that developed for most office, hospitals, and other industrial and commercial uses. That culminated in running about 100-person sales force nationwide. And I was very, very involved in both the research that it took to pull that together and the development, hiring, and training of folks for that endeavor. But probably the most relevant part of what I think I bring to the picture here is the last 25 years of my career I spent with two pretty good sized construction firms, construction and development firms in the metropolitan tri-state Philadelphia area. And during that time, quite a bit of what we did was to help development companies that were in a myriad of industries: retail, commercial office space, multifamily, hotel, and healthcare, across the gamut, and in metropolitan and in surrounding areas around the metropolitan Philadelphia area. So I spent a lot of time working with folks on the proposal side of development endeavors that pitched to, in many cases, commissions and zoning groups, just like the MPC. And then at the same time, I was beginning to join, became interested in some of the efforts to sort of give back on the other side of the table. And I not only served as a board member and VP of our community association of a community that was 169 homes. And then I also served on the board of the Metropolitan Montgomery County Economic Development Commission. So that, and we actually financed a lot of the developments that on the other side of my full-time job, we were pitching to folks. And we helped with financing. We supplied financing to a number of groups that wanted to develop in Montgomery County. And we supplied financing. So we had to evaluate and judge requests for zoning changes, for variances, and for overall the proposals for whether or not they were going to be a good investment. So that's, I guess, the thing that I like to believe in coming to this is that I've always felt like doing something like this requires you to have a balance in mind and understand both sides of how decisions like this are made. And having both been on the proposing side and on the receiving side of proposals, I like to think that that's given me a nice understanding of what that balance ought to be, both for the commercial aspects of what an investment and change like this would be worth. Since we've been down here, I have joined, as some of you know, I've joined the board of the Technical College of the Lowcountry. I was brought on board to a great degree because of my background in construction and in the hospitality industry that we served in those companies. And I've been very involved in the development of the Culinary Institute of the South, which is well underway at this point. We're probably about 50% through construction. And I serve on the President's Council for the furtherance of that as an endeavor to supply the needed personnel for that industry, as badly needed as it is. And I've also, probably most importantly, been serving for the past year on the Technical Advisory Committee for the development of Port Royal's 10-year comprehensive plan. And that has been a year-long effort. I think we just got our final draft of what we're coming finally to conclusion on there. But that obviously has given me an awful lot of additional background and understanding all of the zoning and all of the bordering areas that potentially have the opportunity for development. in this area. And then obviously a discussion, very thorough discussion of all of the tough kinds of decisions that have to be made regarding the environment, like lifestyle, transportation, and the potential for development in Port Royal. I just have been looking forward to having an opportunity to do something that my background would give me the chance to make a further contribution in my mostly retirement life now. And I really think that I could help the town be represented well on the MPC and make the right decisions for that best balance that I think is so important to moving the town and its objectives forward. That's it.
Thank you, David. Council members, questions specific to David? Okay, very good. Our third applicant for the MPC, which is great. We have so many that are interested in this. Mayor Decker. Mayor, go ahead. You're on mute. Caught you first. You're on mute, Mayor. Tony, can you help us unmute?
Got it.
There we go.
Hello.
We can-
Actually, my interest is in the redevelopment commission.
Okay.
Did you still want me to?
No. We'll do the redevelopment. We're going to do the redevelopment next. I wasn't sure because I think you had them both checked. Okay, that's good. We're going to do the redevelopment commission next. So just hang on for a moment. Brooke, did I miss somebody or am I on track here?
You're on track, sir.
Okay. I thought so. Okay, very good. So just hang on, Mayor. If you can mute yourself back again and we'll finish this. I've got one question for both of you. There's no way for us to prevent this one person from hearing the other person's answer. So whoever gets to go first is going to get to answer the question. The other one's going to hear it, but we'll see how that goes. The question I have for you is, tell me your thoughts about why the town has decided to have an MPC, which is a commission that handles multiple jurisdiction rather than its own planning commission. And what do you see as either the benefits or the downfalls of doing that? And Wendy, you got to go first before, so I'm going to let David go first now and answer that question first.
That's a great question. It's actually one of the first that I had for Van and Linda when I met with them 6 weeks or so ago. I think what really makes a difference, and what I learned through the development of the 10-year plan, is that to do something like that in isolation, when you're so closely, from a geographical and from a community standpoint, so closely linked to the town of Beaufort, and then in Port Royal, of course, the way it lays out geographically, we're so tightly entwined with people that are technically in the county over on my side of the creek, that to isolate the way you would go about making your decisions just for the town alone just doesn't seem to be a very cooperative, collegial approach to how you get things done for the greater good. Ever since we first really started coming down here in the early part of the last decade, it never really occurred to me that this was anything but a much larger community, very interdependent, and as I've spent time out and volunteering in Hunting Island, I've gotten to know more and more, and then at Dawtaw, more and more about what life is like out on St. Helena and Ladies Island, and to make decisions in isolation without understanding how everybody is impacted I don't think it would be well served of the community at large. So I think it's the right thing to do. And from what I can tell from my lengthy conversations with our two current board or commission members and one of them who represents the county, I think that's been proven over the course of the past 10 years is how much better it seems to be working than what it did a decade or more ago.
Thank you for that. Wendy?
Well, I remember when there was essentially a joint planning commission, which was held at the county. And after a few years, Beaufort spun off, Port Royal spun off. And I remember the annexation wars. And I think it became pretty evident to everybody concerned, both the citizens who live here and all the elected officials, that really we needed to be cooperative in how we handled growth and development. And that we all affected each other. You know, the rivers don't know which jurisdiction they're in, for example. And so that was, I think, pretty much at the same time as the North, I can't even remember the name of it, the regional plan that meets, you know which one I'm talking about, Joe,
Mhm.
that the elected officials all get together. When we have sprawl because there isn't coordination, it ends up costing the taxpayer a lot of money. The next thing you know, you got to widen the roads, then you're going to build schools out there. The annexation wars were essentially zoning wars. Developers were looking to see where they could get the most liberal zoning and the most density or whatever it was that they were after. And since the MPC has come along, I do think it works a lot better. And I think it gives everybody a chance to see what everybody else is doing and be coordinated. So I can't really even see any downsides to it.
Very good. Thank you for that. And as you know, and I guess Rand and Mary, you'll understand this well. So what we're doing now is during the workshop, we're asking you to speak before us, which you're going to do, everybody's doing tonight. And then we will do the appointments at the following council meeting, which will be next Wednesday. So we're going to take the information we heard from you, and then next Wednesday, a motion will be made by a council member to appoint one of you. We have one seat open for the MPC, to appoint one of you to the MPC. I'll say this now to the four of us that are here now applying for commissions. We can't thank you enough for coming forward. We ask you, if you don't get appointed to one of these commissions now, please come back. There are always seats available. We're always looking for people. It just, sometimes you have lots of great applicants, and we'd love to say we've got seats for everybody, but as you know, it's staggered seats, and part of that staggered seats is so we have some consistency as we move people onto the board. So there'll be an opportunity again in the future, because there's only one seat for the MPC that's available. Thank you for taking the time tonight. You're more than welcome to stay on and watch this whole evening's festivity and conversation that we're going to have in this workshop. But any council members have anything else they want to add before we move to the redevelopment commission?
No, just thank y'all.
Very good. And we got the echo chamber. You could work on that quick mute. So we'll move on now to the MPC. We have to the redevelopment commission. We have two members for the redevelopment commission. And I'll start out with Rand, if you'd like to go ahead and tell us why you're interested and what you think you're going to bring to the table.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'd like to bring to the table some ideas and perspectives. I feel very strongly that we have a very wonderful atmosphere in Port Royal. Development is coming, and that's a part of it. It's going to happen, but I think we can guide it so that we can maintain our own little special community at the same time be in coordination with other places. I have had some experience both as a business person and as a developer, primarily in the military. I think I mentioned to you in my previous interview. where I had to relocate the Joint Intelligence Center from Stuttgart, Germany to England. So I did a lot of staffing, a lot of briefing, all the way up to the minister levels in both countries. You had to look at every aspect of it, but at the same time, you had to get the job done. So, and I did. Wasn't there for the total completion of the job, because in the military, you're not there for forever. You're only there for a few years. But having been a business person and a community person, I think I can bring some new ideas. I think I can work very well with people, and we can try to maybe come up with new ways of maintaining a very pleasant Port Royal that is so attractive to so many people from all over the country right now. So something is going right. So we just need to steer in the same direction, and so that we get the people in that want to come here, because it's a very attractive town to live in.
Thank you, Ran. Council, any questions? Ms. Decker, Mayor, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to enlighten you about how I see myself fitting into this open position in the Redevelopment Commission. As I believe you all know, we own a very successful business in Port Royal for the last 21 years, Castaway Charters. It's actually the #1 rated attraction in Port Royal, according to TripAdvisor. It's been that way for many years. So we have a lot of skin in the game here about what it takes to open a business and make it successful. And I think that's very important when you're trying to attract people to come in here and open businesses. You're trying to drive economic development. So I have that experience in being able to talk to prospective applicants or people who have an interest in opening businesses here or want to start a business here. I can tell them the process, and I can tell them sort of the highs and lows of being able to do something like this, and hopefully coach them a little bit in how to be successful. I also have a successful consulting business, which I operate out of Port Royal as well. So it's really two businesses that help support our tax base here from the Deckard Baracco household. As far as my experience goes, prior to having our own businesses, I was an international representative for a Fortune 50 company. And before that, I was the director of branding and logo and marketing for a luxury hotel company. So I bring a lot of that experience here in terms of how do you create an identity here? How do you create a community identity, which I think we really can boost from the redevelopment side of things. I have, as before, when I applied for this, an opening on the commission, I researched the last 2 years of the agendas. There weren't any posted minutes, but I was able to get a feel from the agendas as to what's been discussed. One of the more recent things was at the September 2020 meeting, there was a discussion about maritime issues, which I assume is related to the potential marina that we're going to have here, which I think is important and also plays into my experience owning a water-based business. There are also 4 things I would like to focus on as a member. And those are, first of all, encouraging a community identity by getting more input from the community, more ideas about what they think the challenges are in Port Royal and how we can find some solutions to them. Also, because economic development or redevelopment focuses a lot, not only on ourselves, but the future of Port Royal, which are young people. I'd like to see more engagement with our community in terms of TCL and USCB. We need to have more youth engaged in the future of the town. I'd also like to work closely with the developers and having more community events like Party on Paris or Music on Main, having a consistent schedule of events and food trucks. And the other thing is, I think we need to have very inviting lighting, which can serve 2 purposes. One, as a way to highlight a safer environment and community. And it can also be used as a public art at the same time. So that can also encourage economic development from the side of having businesses that focus on lighting. So those are some of the things that I think would help our mission of redevelopment, which is really making Port Royal a more inviting community and a better place to live, and also for people to start businesses here, correct? So thank you for allowing me to enlighten you as to my ideas.
Good. Once again, council, any questions for Ms. Decker or Mr. Rand? Or Mr. Ward? Sorry, Rand. Okay, well, again, thank you very much. You understand the process I just highlighted before your interview. And we look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday as we choose to fill these seats. You do have a little bit of an advantage on the redevelopment commission than the MPC. There are actually 2 seats on the redevelopment commission, and we have 2 applicants. So that
So
may
what do
work.
you think my chances are?
Well, the application process is closed. The interviews are complete. You can run the scenarios and think about that. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
yeah, but thank you so much. Again, it's really good to see that people are coming forward. We're not having to put these applications out there for a long time. We post them. We have people ready to go. We have more postings. There's going to be another one very shortly, which is really good. And this is really to do with, it's just we're rolling over these commissions, and we look forward to all the help we can get. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, anything you want to add before we ask Van to give us his briefing? And we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Van for our council briefing. And I think there's a few items in there we're going to be discussing tonight.
Well, let's start with, can y'all hear me fine? I'm doing this through my phone, if that's okay.
Yeah, good.
I can hear you fine.
Still waiting on the permit from the Corps of Engineers for the water control device for the Cypress wetlands. However, we've decided to delay the installation, even if we do get the permit tomorrow, until after the nesting season. If any of y'all have had an opportunity to walk it lately, we've got a lot of activity going on right now, so we don't want to disturb the birds. Did walk the wetlands with Solitude, who's doing the invasive and management, as well as Folk Land Management, who's kind of monitoring, and we'll be working with the with Solitude. Also included Chris Marsh in that walk to review what's kind of going on. Identified those areas we really want to pay attention to. Obviously dealing with some of the duckweed and some of the other things that are going on. Got a very comprehensive understanding of how we want to move it forward, and pretty excited about what's happening there. So if you do see anything that you may have an issue with, please run it by me. I'm happy to discuss that with them. As far as additional stormwater drainage, we've talked about some of those ponding areas in the village that we need to address by maybe changing the grade of some of those compressed parking areas. But we haven't really jumped on that one just yet. We have an estimate for the installation of the power to the aerator in the Madrid pond, and we've got Kent scheduled to do that install here shortly.
Van, on the Cypress wetlands, are they also going to be dealing with keeping that grass cut down, especially behind the YMCA and the police and fire station side, where it really is an area people can walk on?
Well, it's also a bird area.
Okay.
So we will keep it down to keep the view corridor appropriate, but it is also kind of a nesting area for some of the different birds.
Great.
So we're going to allow it to come up some, but there will be areas that we may keep a little bit closer mowing on so that they can, but we don't want them venturing too close to the water's edge because we all know it's in there. So we just all have to be careful.
Daryl's friend. Because when I was out there, he was pointing them out to me. He was finding them and showing them to me.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty exciting stuff. The next item I wanted to discuss is community development block grants. I included in your packets the budget worksheet prepared by Four Waters for the engineering and the scope of engineering services related to the sewer grant. We're still refining the scope for the Paris Avenue improvements, so that we'll keep pushing that forward. Both of the contracts have been signed with the state, and obviously the funding is in place. So we're pushing through on those. We're pretty excited about that. Pretty significant project that, we've excited about adding it. There've been some questions recently about the additional sewer, how people can get sewer, what they need to do to get sewer. Right now I'm steering them to the Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority website. There is a link on one of their web pages that where people can request sewer, if you will. Obviously, I'm not, sure how. I think it will take some critical mass for some of that to happen, but I think we need to look at some of the options for that. Right now, the expansion of sewer in the town of Port Royal happens almost exclusively through the awarding of community development block grants. And obviously, this is the next one for the other side of Rebo Road in the town of Port Royal. But I think we'll be working on hopefully closing some of the holes and gaps that we have in the sewer system, hopefully in the next couple of years. I think that would be a good thing to do. Okay. Parking in the right of way. This is a question that's come up recently. Citizen generated some concerns about, some of the vehicles that we're seeing parked along the roadside that are quite frankly causing a couple of issues according to them. One is limited view. The second is potential damage to the right of ways. Obviously, those right of ways, and we've discovered this recently when we're working on some sidewalk issues. That's where our utilities are buried. So we need to keep that in consideration. We obviously understand that the commercial vehicles do need to be up and down these roads because we have citizens that are served by these vehicles from time to time. But it was something that was brought to my attention. I'd hoped we would have discussed it at the retreat, but we didn't get around to it. So I think I included in your packet also some different examples of ordinances that municipalities have in different places on this particular issue. And I wanted to bring that up as a discussion point for y'all this evening.
Council, any discussion on that? I certainly look forward to hearing a recommendation from staff. I think a weight limit for parking vehicles is not a bad idea. We just got to decide where we want that to be.
Definitely that, and also right-of-way issues also, because a lot of these people are parking on the sidewalk, restricting passage, and also a hazard for those that are passing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think we're really talking about, vehicles. When we say vehicles, we're really talking about trucks, like in the 1-ton range, right, Van? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
7,000 pound vehicle weights.
Right. And some of the, a couple of examples I found, one was they, were concerned about vehicles of 10,000 pounds or more. Another one was an example of 5,000 pounds or more. And then one actually spoke to the size in terms of length of a vehicle. In one case, it was, a vehicle no larger than 225 inches, inclusive of load and bumper, and no wider than 80 inches as measured by the body, or higher than 81 inches. Now, I certainly don't want to have to send kangaroo around with a tape measure. And so I think probably weight is probably a better guide to figure this out.
Yeah. Have you had an opportunity to do any research on, like, if somebody was to go and buy a 3/4 ton pickup truck, what that gross vehicle weight is? I mean, that's something somebody can own and want to park in front of their house. And I certainly don't want to be excluding that in any way.
Right. Well, right now, we do allow, and Linda, if you're listening, we do allow one commercial vehicle on a residential lot. Right. The concerns I'm hearing are about those vehicles parked in right of ways. And most of these ordinances do have exceptions, like vehicles engaged in making pickups or deliveries or rendering services in or upon any property adjacent to the street where said vehicles are parked. So it's, we're not strictly prohibiting them from traveling along these streets. It's just that it's the overnight parking in these right of ways that's causing some consternation. And like you said, we if somebody does own one of these vehicles, we do allow one to be parked on the property. And we do allow them parked in commercial properties, obviously. It's just where we're seeing them in residential areas along right of ways. It's causing some of our residents to have concerns. And then even in one of the ordinances that I reviewed, it had a hierarchy depending upon the size of the road. One section of roads allowed nothing in excess of 7,500 pounds. You know, in other words, did allow it, but I think it was topped off at 10,000. I don't know that we want to get that specific, but you know, if based upon the little bit of input I've given you this evening, you know, we could craft something that you could give the first reading to if council's inclined to do that.
Council, discussion.
I mean, I think if anything's tearing up the road and tearing up town property, that of course needs to be addressed, if that's what's indeed happening, you know.
All right, well, Van, we'll let you kind of keep narrowing down to what you think makes sense and may want to bring forward to us.
All righty.
All right.
Okay. Greg Ghost Port, I don't really have anything to report on at this time. Moving on to shrimp facility
Real
process.
quick.
Yeah.
Can we discuss that at the moment? I would just ask if there's any way we can either at next council meeting or when we get back into public, I don't know if, however y'all want to do it, like an executive session or a public meeting with some kind of update on our deficiency letter and the cure period. We're well past the cure period that we set, and just kind of see an update on, you know, we spent a lot of time and lawyer fees on drafting this letter and sending it to them, and just kind of see where we're at on those things that we requested, and just to kind of get an update on that. I think that'd be really helpful, and hopefully getting a look at the master plan. And like I said, just overall, just an update from them. I know it's been a while since we've had one. So
Yeah, I did circulate the master plan. The only problem that is remaining is the master plan is the issue that we have unresolved with them, which is the potential property swap. So I think based upon those discussions, they can fill that hole. And I think that's, you know, in our court a little bit. The other outstanding part of that cure letter is a list of dilapidated buildings, I believe, that they were going to maybe exercise the tax credit for abandoned buildings. And
not just
earlier. So I think I'm gonna have him ready for next Wednesday.
okay, that'd be great. Yeah, not just an update for us, but you know, for the town and everybody watching as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kevin. Very good.
All right, the next is a shrimp facility. I did reach out to Representative Erickson regarding some potential funding for improvements to both the dock and the eventual hopeful construction of our portion of any sort of building that would house processing. As you know, we're currently we have $600,000 set aside, but that's well short what would be necessary to do both of those things. So as we make progress, if you recall, we were asked to pull together estimates for these projects that were to be included. And a list of projects that Councilman Stu Rodman was going to forward to Senator Davis for potential inclusion in funding for non-recurring funds at the state level. And I'm not aware of any dollars being designated at this point. Okay.
Van, did you get any opportunity to work at all on the possibility of stopping the processing and seeing what it would look like for a self-service, or just can the shrimpers just handle it on their own?
Well, where we, you know, those were some of the initial discussions, and obviously there are a couple of components that they would be necessary for them even to almost be self-service in their fuel and ice. Ice, I think we could address. The town owns a $30,000 ice machine down there. You know, if that's something that we'd want to potentially continue to contribute to that effort in working out how they access that ice, that's something we could do. The second part is the fuel, and fuel tank is gone. So they would be on their own in terms of ordering fuel. Minimum order is 1,000 gallons. I know that one can take 1,000 gallons, the other cannot, but that's something they would need to coordinate. And I believe there was a third piece of it. You know, basically they're talking about offloading and packing, not really sorting and processing.
Correct.
But it'd be their responsibility to interface with, you know, their vendors, or who are their buyers, whatever you want to call them. So those are things that they could do themselves. Obviously, we still do not own the dock at this point. So we do have the conveyance documents prepared. In terms, they would basically be on their own. Obviously, we would still need to carry insurance on the dock. As you all know, most of those boats are pumped via, you know, our electricity through the dock. So those are things that they'd have to monitor themselves. So yeah, there's ways to do it. Obviously, you know, we could step away from what we're doing now completely if we wanted to do that, which, you know, we'd need some phasing, because we will need to vacate what we have in the building, clean out, finish that out, wrap it up. You know, right now we've got the swordfish boats that are in. So, you know, they could potentially handle that themselves as well. That we assist with the offload and packing of those boats, fabricating boxes, and they have their own ice. They have the ability to make their own ice, so that's not an issue. And they do order their own fuel. They deliver that fuel via the system that's kind of in place by tying that truck into those lines. Obviously, they do take on more than 1,000 gallons, so they certainly can make arrangements to get fuel. So those are your options. I mean, yeah, you can certainly make it a standalone and allow them to work with their buyers. Because right now we serve as that conduit. We buy the shrimp through the dock and then sell to our buyers. So, and then if you get that, you've got rent off the table completely as well.
Right.
So how do we go about with making that decision? What does that look like?
Well, Kevin,
The five of y'all just tell me not to do it anymore, or at least three of you.
right. Well, I think, Kevin, that is where I am in my head, because looking at the timeline. So here's what I'm thinking in a timeline. We're currently coming up to the end of a fiscal year. I mean, it's you know, it's a couple months away. So if we were to say right now, not now, we can't do anything tonight. But if next week, somebody was to say, making a motion that we're going to stop processing and we're just going to maintain the dock, because remember, these are two separate subjects in a lot of ways. You know, they may be intertwined, but they're separate. But if we were to do that, that gives and say we're going to do it at the end of this fiscal year, which would be June 30th, that gives everybody a chance and time to arrange the things they need to do. And if something happens, you know, then obviously they can come back to us. But that also allows Van to plan, and the town staff to plan a budget for next year that doesn't include supplementing shrimp processing. The dock will still remain. We still will have the insurance. We still will have the electric costs and those things, and there'll be some the ice machine will be there. But that's where I am in my head, because we want to obviously give people enough time to prepare for the change that we're discussing if we decide to go down that path.
If we decide to go down that path, we're just in a discussion mode right now. No decision has been made.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, the discussion that we're having is really, because like you said, that is two entities. We have the dock and we have shrimp processing. Does the town want to be in the business of shrimp processing? I think I've heard from this council many times and on many occasions that the town should not be in the business of shrimp processing. We can maintain a shrimp dock. You know, we pride ourselves. Another thing this council prides itself and has said many times is that we're good stewards of the town's money. And I think we're on track to lose $200,000 a year this year with the shrimp dock. I mean, these were all things that came up at the retreat. So, you know, at some point, I think our words, you know, need to have some action behind them if indeed we mean them.
I agree with
Sorry, Daryl. I agree too. One of the things though, I still will continue to fight is what boats are paying, what boats aren't, what legal obligations do we have? Why are we continuing to furnish electricity for the boats for their bilge pumps whenever they don't pay their rent? If every boat down there is paying rent, that's one thing, but they aren't. So what are we doing and how can we go about it in a legal way to remove the boats that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing? And they're the ones that are costing this town. I agree, that's two separate issues, the processing, and I'm 100% with everybody on that. But my focus is also on the boats down there that don't pay the rent, hadn't paid in years. What are we doing?
Van, do you think it would be possible to get an inventory of the boats for next week?
Yeah, and I
With
gave
also
Chris,
a year's worth of payment schedules? Who's
yeah,
paying?
Chris has that and has put it in a spreadsheet, which I'm looking for. I don't think he's given it to me yet. But you have two boats down there. You have two boats, one that hadn't paid in 11 months and one hadn't paid in 17.
Very good.
And basically all of the others are fairly regular. Like we had one shrimper that had some difficulties with some repairs. So obviously we worked with him. We had another one who had a physical injury and was out, and we worked with him, which I find kind of contradictory considering what we're being investigated for right now. But anyways, so particularly considering the discretion we were given to the two that are significantly behind in rent. So yeah, you've got two. But as I've said before, here are your two options. If they do not pay, you can take them to court and you'll end up owning two shrimp boats.
And then
The other option is you try to figure something out with them. Here, the reality is that once we get out of processing and we manage the dock only, if that's the path that council chooses, we still are going to have to deal with several of these derelict boats. And it could be, and we may have to bite the bullet here and say, you know what, we are going to take them to court. We will assume ownership and we just need to get rid of them.
And again, if council chooses to stop processing, and we could easily say we're going to defer the money we were spending on processing to clearing the dock and spending that money again. It's a loss again for another fiscal year.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a loss, but it's a loss that's gaining us to an end, which is dealing with the boats that have not paid. And again, then we're also freeing up, if we go down that path, we're freeing up the revenue to give the staff the opportunity to deal with the issue. Because right now we don't have the revenue. If we own those boats tomorrow and have to get them out of there, we don't have the money to do so. And this would give them that opportunity.
It's a lot less expensive to remove a floating boat than a sunken boat.
So speaking of sunken boats, we've got two sitting on the bottom out there. I believe we had applied for some grants.
Yeah, we're still waiting
speak to that? And
it's federal money that is routed through the State Department of Natural Resources. And we submitted for either 3 or 4, we submitted for 3 boats to be removed. The 2 that are sunk and the third that's on the end that's basically
in the sink.
And it's one of the ones that Mary Beth was concerned about that we want to get rid of.
Okay.
So
those kind of my thought, like you were saying, Joe. I mean, if you're not losing $200,000 a year, that kind of frees up some money to get rid of some derelict boats if we have to, because that is I worry all the time. We're going to wake up one day and have another sunken boat, or just any day. I mean, we got a bunch of just ticking time bombs down there. So
environmental hazards, yes.
Environmental hazards and the destruction to the rest of the dock as it goes down.
Absolutely. Well, you all have heard my sentiments about this.
Yep. We'll take up, next week we'll have to make some decisions if the timing is right and see what we want to do. I appreciate all the great conversation.
We'll tell you this, we will be holding a series of budget workshops, and through that budget process, this will be a part of the discussion, and y'all will have to designate what you think would be appropriate in the following fiscal year to address potential removal and you'll be making basically a policy determination through the budget process on the future of the dock.
Okay.
But it would be nice to have that determination made, so we do give, 6 to 8 weeks of notice on how we want to proceed.
Very good. All right. If nothing else on this subject, go ahead, Ben.
Thank you, Van.
Yeah, Baynard Cove stop work order is still in place. I drive through there from time to time just to see if there's any activity, and there's nothing going on at the moment. There's still a unresolved sewer tie-in issue between Willow Point and Baynard Cove, so nothing new at this point. Traffic and road projects. I met with Beal Engineering in the county to discuss, some of the findings that Beal, and if you recall, Beal was first engaged to address how we would construct the Spanish Moss Trail across Rebo Road. The county asked for consideration, kind of widen the scope of that to address maybe some safety concerns along the corridor, which we identified through our own tool study. They've identified some short and long-term issues. We're going to talk about a little bit more, but a couple of the short-term concerns that they had is obviously some of the left-hand movements up near the intersection of Paris Avenue, near the Port Royal Center, left turns out of Parker's, left turns out of Mascaro, and there's also up in that area a telephone or utility pole that seems to be involved in a lot of accidents, been replaced several times. So they're scoping out a project to address that. And then obviously on the other end of that corridor, as you come off the bridge, one of our other accident kind of hotspots are those left-hand movements on Lenora, off and on Lenora and off and on Drayton. So they've got some recommendations that they want to pull together. As they look at this corridor longer term, we were talking about the extension of Battery Creek adjacent to where the Spanish Moss Trail is slated to go, as well as some potentially additional roads added south of Rebo that would tie Columbia and Edinburgh together and maybe create some more conventional intersections. I believe one through the mobile home park near West Paris Avenue and Royal Palm, which is right across. And then obviously, as I mentioned, Columbia through Edinburgh, which would be through the 19th Street project. Obviously they're looking at much larger scope of projects. Obviously Ladies Island plan envisioned some improvements at Ladies Island Drive and Rebo, as well as identifying really projects, from Boundary all the way through the bridges. There's some significant work that could be done to kind of make that entire corridor safer and more biker friendly. So those are discussions that are ongoing. We've either got really short-term projects that we want to work on or very kind of larger long-term projects. The longer ones, they're going to need a number of funding sources, with one of them being the impact fee program. We've asked for an updated potential impact fee price that could be associated with how large these projects are, and all that's being worked on. It's very conceptual right now, some of the larger things, but they need to happen. And then, running parallel to that, we've got a number of requests for speed bumps, and we're in the process of ordering and doing that. Y'all have to give me the discretion to install some of those. We identified one that we do need for West Paris Avenue, so that's probably going to be first. But there are a few others we're probably just going to have to go ahead and install. Hoping that some of these other projects will mitigate against those impacts. And then, the one thing that we keep wrestling with is, where is the Spanish Moss Trail going to cross, and will it cross in more than one location? Or are we looking at, depending upon the timeline for development, are we looking at things happening at Edinburgh and Vinay before we could warrant a crossing of the Spanish Moss Trail where we anticipate the Spine Road and the extension of Battery Creek Road going? The DOT works on warrant studies and basically you can't justify things unless you have, let me rephrase that. Most of the time a signal can't be installed unless there's been a warrant study or the traffic counts justify it. We have seen examples where that is happened a little bit outside that process. But there are things happening along the corridor. I'll stop talking and let you guys talk about it a little bit.
Well, I do want to say thank you, Van, from the retreat for looking into the speed bumps and talking about West Paris getting one. That is a really dangerous situation. And do we know of the plans for, the trailer park right there on West Paris and Rebolt? You were saying something about the road coming across, and I'm sure that would go in between Randall and the thing to kind of even up the roads there. But the plans that are being made, or has anybody, I know once before we talked about somebody had bought that property and there was potential development. Is that still something ongoing, or has that changed?
You're talking about the corner?
Yeah, right there, the trailer park right there on West Paris and Rebolt.
About Kent's?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, there is nothing official that has been submitted to the town for the redevelopment of that property. We've heard, speculation that, sort of residential development. But that park will be a challenge. It has a number of actually really beautiful trees on the property. And it does have access and is on Rebo Road. So it's configured oddly, to be quite honest with you. It's a really odd shaped triangle. But because it's adjacent to Rebo Road, it does have some value. It could be, they could be in a holding pattern waiting for other things to happen around them, whether it be 19, which is under contract, on the other side, on the
that building is.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's just, if you think about it, there are beautiful trees in there. But if you think if they ever had a fire back in there and there's only one way out, it kind of makes me nervous. So I just kind of wanted to see if that was still on the radar. I know we talked about it a while back. But I think we're moving in the right direction, doing some speed bumps, not just on West Paris, but all over town, because I think they're warranted. And the Spanish Moss Trail, I think, is very important to all of us. And we do need to make sure we get that, because like you said, we had that tool study, and, we talk about the traffic left, the right turn in, right turn out on Drayton and Lenore. And that is a bad intersection. And it makes the most sense to put the signal light right there at the Spanish Moss crossing and the Spine Road.
Van, we had talked about the Friends presenting to us what they believed is the right recommendation. Have you been in touch with them? Are they going to do that? I didn't see it on the agenda for next week, or are they going to do it at the May retreat, at the May workshop?
I think we just got to get them on the agenda. I think they're ready to do that. And we certainly could, if they're ready, have them present next Wednesday. I just need to reach them. I know we were going to talk about it a little bit further with them, but I think they're somewhere in the process that they're willing to do that, if I'm correct.
Council, would you like to see it next Wednesday or at the workshop the following month? What's your thoughts? Workshop?
I'm fine next week. I think we need to get a message out as to where we stand. And I think we need to do it sooner than later. So I'm fine with next week. What do you guys think?
Man, let's see if you can't make that happen for next week.
I believe we chatted it like Jerry was saying at the retreat about a resolution, or
I agree.
Yeah.
We got to hear from the Friends. So let's see if we can't make that happen.
I've got a question, Van, for you. And that crossing right there, at Pender and Martin's right there, didn't a train used to cross there back in the day? And how did we manage the traffic then? I mean, it's train used to go by there pretty regular, is what I'm thinking. What do we do then?
There were flashing lights and gates. I was here and stopped that train many a times.
Absolutely.
Heard the whistle as they blew by my house.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not out of the ordinary. I mean, it's happened before. Cars have come off of that bridge, they've had to stop right there as the train proceeded, as the train went by.
True,
Yeah.
we didn't have many cars or vehicles at that time, but you're right. They still came off of that bridge and around that curve.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not out of the norm. It's happened before.
And
Yeah.
Van was being extremely politically correct in his statement about it warrants, the DOT warrants the traffic study or the count first before they do it, but it has been different in other places. And we need to be ready to push that issue. The 170 crossing was built at the same time the trail was, so they had no idea how many pedestrians were going to be crossing there. So it is not unusual. The crossing at Burton Hill Road is not at the intersection. It is midway, a little bit down that block. That again is the same scenario. So why is it happening in the city of Beaufort and that section of the trail, and we can't make it happen here? Just, so we just need to be ready to push the issue. We need to get the documents. We need to get to see the details, and then we need to push the issue as hard as we can. So, once we agree that's the right spot, I think we're all in there. We want to hear from the friends to be certain about that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, and I just sent them an email asking them to present next Wednesday.
very good. I think you're up. I think you're up to Porter's Chapel if we're good here, if we're done with this.
I think so.
Go ahead, Ben.
Landscaping and fencing has been installed. The sign is completed, obviously not installed. Well, it was temporarily installed until I saw that it was installed, then making them take it down so nobody would see it. So it's gone. I have a meeting tomorrow with Scott on site to discuss the results of their master sign plan. We are still waiting for I think we're nearing the end of the semester. And so USCB is still working on their coursework. And then, we've set the table, set the stage for this thing to be opened, if you will, officially. And so I think we just need to work out a schedule and make that happen.
Okay.
Kind of hand in hand, adjacent to that is this next topic, is the Naval Hospital sidewalk. And I had at this point until yesterday, I didn't have any updates to give you guys, but I did hear something from the SCDOT earlier today that there was a inconsistency between the right of way that Jacksonville had and the one that they had identified. Nothing that's insurmountable, but now they've got to reconcile all these documents. So TAB's aware of it, so hopefully we'll make some progress in figuring that all out. And once we get those things done, beyond just getting the sidewalk installed, it does allow us to address that section of Old Shell Road. So, that's adjacent to Naval Heritage Park, which is part of a larger plan to, as a regional park that could be impacted by an updated recreation impact fee for Northern Beaufort County. So, pretty exciting things at the Naval Hospital area, Naval Hospital and the park, but still something we're trying to figure out. Which leads me to the next topic, local option sales tax. I think, I'd hate to use the word assured, but I think we all felt pretty comfortable that it would be placed on the 2021 ballot. We weren't asking for an endorsement. We weren't asking the county to fund projects. We were just asking the county to put it on the ballot so people could vote it up or down. And it failed at the executive committee this past Monday on a 5-5 vote. So as of right now, the local option sales tax will not be on the ballot in 2021 for people to consider. One of the main components of the local option sales tax is 71% of it is set aside for property tax relief, with the 29% is funding that is at the discretion of the entity, that the taxing entity, if you will. And, we've all made commitments so far, at least the town has, to infrastructure funding, ankles down roads, sidewalks, those sorts of things. One of the reasons it was mentioned by some on county council that they didn't like the idea of it is that the municipalities could explore their borrowing capacity to address some of their local needs. I find it interesting. Here we are talking about, 71% of this being set aside for property tax relief, and their solution is actually adding debt mills to the taxpayers' property tax bills. So I think it's maybe just a difference of philosophy where we're interested in assisting commercial and second homeowners with these tax bills, which not only pay 6%, but also pay significantly to school taxes. So here we are, once again, stymied in our ability to address critical infrastructure in our town and give our residents property tax relief. So
I will add a little bit to this. There has been some late activity this afternoon on this. The vote was what the vote is. There is still a possible opportunity for it to come before the full county council and for them to vote even at the full county council with not a recommendation from the executive branch, which is the same people. But that option is available. The municipalities are all working. If you have an opportunity, I would reach out to council members, county council members, and I would let them know your feelings and how this could help everybody, including the county, because they could also use it the same way they're talking about us borrowing money. They could use it to borrow against and pay for roads without having to do another 1 cent road tax later in the future. So there's a lot of advantages. Again, all we're asking for is for them to put it on the ballot and let the citizens decide. We're not asking them to decide. We're asking them to put it on the ballot. There is a presentation I will share with you that came from the Municipal Association. I will do my best to get that out to you tonight or tomorrow morning. I think it is 37 of the 46 counties or 37 of the county. I think it's very close to 40 of the counties in South Carolina have a local option sales tax. And you can reach out to them and ask them if you want and find out what the benefits were and how it's helped them. I think Rock Hill area actually has both local option sales tax and penny road tax to get the roads the way they wanted and to build the neighborhoods the way they wanted. So it definitely was a setback, but not completely off the table for this election year, but we're still working on it.
And Mayor, I think it's an important fact to bring up, no matter what your thoughts on it are, the only way it has to be a referendum vote. The county council can't just vote on this straight up and down. The only way that this, could ever be decided, this issue could ever be decided, would be by a referendum vote by the citizens of Beaufort County. It's not something that can just get brought to council and let the representatives decide it. The only way it ever has a chance of, being decided in the county is by a referendum vote. So it's not like people are trying to use the referendum vote for, political reasons. It's the only way that issue can ever be brought up.
And again, majority of the counties in South Carolina saw the benefit and voted yes for it, more than the majority. And the other thing is the county, if they feel they don't need the money for the capital investments like the municipalities feel like they do, because it is our only way to do that, they could do 100% of the money they receive, the county receives, to tax relief. They could do that, and they could offset the tax 100% of the penny that's collected in the non-municipal areas for tax relief. So it gives everybody a lot of options. Okay, Van.
All right. Next option, Small Oxenbron Road. I think that's also part of the larger discussion of what's going to happen at Edinburgh and Vinay. We reached out to 303 to discuss a master plan for in that entire area. And, I think, he's interested in that section of Smilax. I think y'all have the letter in your folders. So please take a look at it when you get an opportunity. Maybe we'll discuss this a little more fully next week if you've had an opportunity not yet to digest it. But there's some, some opportunities for redevelopment along in that area. And, we wrestled with how to address that end of Smilax, which does have some utilities in it, is not what we would deem a traditional right-of-way in terms of its width. It is an egress ingress point for people using the Spanish Moss Trail and for some property owners at that end of the street. It obviously ties into what is the recognized state-owned right-of-way of Smilax, which obviously ties into Benet and Ron Road. So I think we need to look at the totality of roads in that area and figure out what works best. He just put that on the table for you guys to think about. Like I said, if you're not prepared to talk about it tonight, that's fine. But if you got some comments, please share them. If not, we can discuss them next week. Either way.
Council?
I read it, but I'd like to, I guess I'll just reserve my opinions until next week so that I can reread it also. There are a couple areas that I do agree with his recommendation, and then there's some concerns that I have as well.
Yeah, I agree. My hesitation still is I'm not sure that there's enough guarantees in the letter
Right.
On access for utilities and
others
and the property owners.
Right.
That's still my largest concern that I have in that. And I think we need to look at I think Van's right. We need to look at the bigger picture as far as, Smilax to Benet and Benet. We need to look at the bigger picture there and decide what it is we want all of that to.
And Ron. We can't forget about Ron. Ron is the first one that we get connect with.
Do we have an update on Ron, Van?
Nothing firm at this time. I'll wrap my head around that one. Employment, our inspector has started. He has hit the ground running. He's been out actually doing inspection work, and he's looking for a house at the moment. His family is still in Alaska. They'll be there through I guess they have to wait for things to thaw out enough so they can actually travel south. I think we're looking for sometime in May. But he's, like I said, we're super impressed so far and very pleased. I intend to introduce him to y'all at the council meeting next week.
Very good.
I have extended an offer to a potential planning director. According to him, he's leaning towards us. He does want to visit the area. I'm expecting that to happen in the next few days, and then hopefully we'll have that issue addressed as well. Fortunately for us, Linda has agreed to continue to help us out, which is of tremendous help. And she understands the importance of where we are in terms of port redevelopment and other issues that are happening. And she wants to make sure that her work is protected and it continues. And she's also agreed to help with the transition of the new planning director once he or she arrives.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, that's great news.
All right.
Thank you.
Next issue.
He looks happy.
Next issue, short-term rental software. I did reach out to vendors like y'all asked me to. I did have one that responded. Did put together a little bit of a presentation. The dollars attached to it and the anticipated costs are within the procurement code that would allow me to proceed. Y'all recently are aware of an issue that we had as we are trying to deal with the state and how we reconcile collections from the different VRBO vendors and how they may or may not be being remitted to the town. I'm hoping that the software will maybe help us address that, because I've indicated previously they thought we only had 33 short-term rentals in the town of Port Royal. Obviously, there are more than that. We have at least 70 licensed at the moment. So there's some work to be done there, at least to have the state to address, what we've got going on. They agreed to give us URLs, but like I mentioned, it only covers 30 or so. And even despite the URLs, there's no supporting report that reconciles the collection with what the fee should be. So that's still to be resolved. This is a statewide issue. I mean, I started wrestling with this back in September of 20 and have engaged Mary Lore, who had an ongoing dialogue with HomeAway, which is kind of one of these umbrella companies that handles VRBOs. And And I gave you all the letter that basically told us we were entitled to any private information about these units and how they are collecting those funds. So that's why it's been very frustrating for the town as we try to satisfy some of our short-term rental owners, but we just don't have the ability right now to tell exactly what we're being paid by the state.
Will we need to do, like we talked about in the retreat, as far as doing a unique identifier, the only modification to the current ordinance? Will that help this software and help us in this aspect?
I think it'll help the town for a record keeping perspective, and it would be almost a belt and suspenders if we also include the software. So yeah, it certainly can't hurt. And we're not talking about any of the other things that were in the recommendations for short-term rental management. There's no regulations on parking. There's no regulations relative to densities. There's no cap per districts. It's just, we're talking about an identifier that would be given to the unit upon receipt of their business license as a short-term rental.
Could staff draft some sort of a language to add to the existing ordinance just to reflect that and bring it forward for us at next
Sure.
month's workshop? Because we haven't had a chance. It's got to come to a workshop first.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And
All
maybe
right.
we can get the presentation on the software if you think it's necessary.
Well, actually, I have it as a PowerPoint as well, and I can circulate that to y'all.
Right.
Okay.
That council, does everybody agree with that?
I'm okay with it.
Good with it.
All right, just want to bring you up. We do have, we met with Dominion on site to talk about the flag array installation at the main Paris Avenue sign. So we're going to be ordering those. When we did get approval, we did have some concerns about the overheads. We met with them on site to give us the appropriate dimensions, make sure that that wasn't going to be a problem for them. So that's what you've got in your packet, is that layout, and it has been approved, and we're moving forward with it. All right. Next item, Sands Beach Boat Landing. The county has determined that they do not own the Sands Beach Boat Landing. It is one of, I think, 2 or 3 that they do not claim ownership of. Obviously, historically, they were the main provider of maintenance and any sort of upgrades or renovations to the boat landings. I think Pigeon Point was one in the city. The city has decided, I believe, to take that one on. So I've tried to figure out, reached out to O'Quinn Marine to see what it would take to really fix this boat landing, and he does want to meet to discuss it. We all know what happens on those kind of those 2 inside lanes. They really are silted in, and I think that's just a function of the way that those floaters are working and capturing the sand in that area. So it's an issue we've got to figure out if we're willing to take on. Obviously, we own Sands Beach Road, and if we ultimately own Sand Beach Boat Landing, it's yours, and you can do what you want with it.
Oh, well, man, when did that happen, and did we get a reasoning for that? Because if you go down there, there's still there's a Beaufort County logo on the sign down there. Like, when did they just up and decide, oh, we don't own it anymore? Did they tell us? I mean,
last 6 to 9 months, I guess they've really been digging into their assets, their inventory, and trying to identify things that would indicate that they actually have ownership. And they have a significant number of boat landings that, basically were county owned, county operated. I shouldn't say operated because they're not really operated, but maintained. And it was determined that they're basically 3. And I have the list, but Sands Beach, now the one on the other side of the bridge that's in Port Royal is county owned. And I think what you'll see is anywhere where some of these boat landings were extensions of right of ways is where ownership becomes an issue. That's the case of Pigeon Point, and obviously that's the case with the one at Sands Beach. And I'm gonna try to pull it up real quick.
So were they just saying they were taking care of it for years, just out of a favor, and
they were handshake agreements?
Right, handshake agreements between previous public works directors.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
right now they're saying they're not owned as Sands, Wimby Creek, Wallace, and Brickyard.
It was interesting that Pigeon Point is not on that list.
Right. But I think because the city has taken it, maybe they just didn't. It was.
Removed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, council, we've got decisions. Obviously, we own, at this point, they're saying we own it. Van's going down a path to find out what's the cost implications to us.
Which is another expense to the town.
Right. It does give us the opportunity to apply for A-tax and H-tax money for work to that boat landing, because that is the money that the county uses. They apply for it on their own to fix boat landings. So we would have the same option to that same pool of money in the future. Or we can go down the path to say, ask the county, what would it take for you for us to deed it to you under ownership? And they would either have to say we don't want it or they want it. Again, it's a bigger decision we have to make. It's the first time, we've kind of gotten a little bit of hints about this the last 30, 60 days. So obviously we all need some time to think about it. Nothing changes, as you know, on the way it's being operated right now, but it is in need of some repairs, both the boat landing and the parking area. One of the things I know I've heard from this council is we didn't feel that the way they striped the parking made sense. We wanted to do it a different way, get more cars in there. We keep ownership, we get to do that stuff, but we got to pay for it. So this is a bigger decision and one we're going to have to work through, and in some ways may fit into the whole port redevelopment and development side and property swaps and all that stuff that goes along with it. So more to come, but at least at least now we've got it to a point that we have a clear delineation that they're saying they do not own it. And now we got to work it from here.
Yep. There's another issue that I'm exploring, and I just need to dig into a little bit deeper. I think I may have given y'all a little bit of indication. It's the discussion of the county-wide solid waste impact fee that county council is currently contemplating, which I believe is, hold on one second, would be $169 annually. I think they're trying to equate it to what is currently the cost associated through your county taxes for operations. I'm not sure exactly what the scope of what you would be getting for the $169 would be. I don't know if that includes curbside pickup for both garbage and recycling. I guess we'll figure that out. They expect it to generate about $16 million in revenue for 90,000 homes. Obviously, if they're anticipating doing curbside service for unincorporated areas that would be included in this fee, we probably need to consider whether we would continue our contracts for both garbage and recycling and just assume that our residents will be treated like other county residents and be included in any contract for curbside service. I don't know what that means just yet, but it's something we need to think about also.
I did a little bit of digging into this when I saw it and heard about this, and I think we need to ask County Administrator Eric Greenway to give us a little presentation, make us so we can understand. It is my understanding it is just moving the exact operation that's happening now, the funding of that operation out of our taxes and into a utility, into a fee. So no different than stormwater utility, this would be a garbage utility. That is not in any way, this is what I understand, contemplating a change to the way the garbage is transferred to the landfill and the landfill fees are paid. So we really need to know, is there going to be a direct offset in taxes if a new fee is put in place? So if they're going to charge us all $169, are they going to reduce the millage to equate to about the same on each and everybody's tax rolls, or are they just adding a new fee in that way? But it's my understanding that it's just so that they have some accountability, some more accountability in the way that they're funding the transfer of garbage from the transfer stations to the landfill and paying for the tipping fees at the landfill. It does not consider pickup at anybody's home. But I think we need a firm answer on that. So Van, can you reach out to Eric and see if somebody from his group will come and present to us about that?
Certainly. Certainly. And I will send y'all the email I received with the corresponding discussion item agenda that was on the county, as part of that county meeting where it was discussed.
Thank you.
We'll see what we find out. Impact fees, we're still waiting on, what the final list of projects are all going to be and figure out what those fees are. So I'll keep you posted. Speed bumps we've talked about already. And I did talk to our booker for street music, and she's trying to get things set up for the August timeline that y'all determined at the retreat.
Good. Any questions for Van?
I do have one, Van. I know I've talked to you a couple of times about this and had multiple calls. So the people that bought the property next to us that had the circle that went around Fort Frederick Trailer Park, they've closed it off, and which cuts us from garbage pickup. So in the middle of the night, Monday night, they politely went and moved our trash cans to the main road on 16th Street. I wonder what we're going to do about trash pickup for the people. Of course, mine goes back onto 16th Street, but there's other people that don't have that. And one of them is a 93-year-old woman that lives here. And is she supposed to get out and drag her trash from halfway down that road that she's used to putting out at her curbside to 16th Street?
So what y'all do now is you at Lottery Lane and Fort Frederick Circle is where you were traditionally putting your cans.
That's correct.
And so what he did the other night was pull the cans from that location out to 16th Street.
That's correct.
Okay.
He actually went and moved everybody's trash can in the middle of the night, and they didn't know it till the next day. But the problem is that this problem isn't going to go away. I mean, the trash has to be picked up, and you can't expect people to walk their trash all that way down. I mean, that's
I assume
unrealistic.
he didn't grab the cans after they were emptied and drag them back to the house.
Oh, no, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to get
That would
somebody
be
to do that. That would be too nice.
Yeah.
But I think that's a problem. The former mayor has called me numerous times and has attempted to call you, which he's concerned about different things down there. If you might get a chance, you might want to just call him too.
I did. I talked
You
to
did?
him. I talked to him a couple days ago.
Okay,
And
good.
I'm attempting to address that in a way that will hopefully make everybody happy. Now, as far as the movement of the cans, that's new. I've got to figure that one out. Because I guess I assume he's doing that because he doesn't want the garbage truck to pull up the circle. I know I noticed the two posts on either side that he's doing.
He's now he parks his truck in the middle of the street to keep people from going. But he also told me the last week that he was going to move all that for the trash people to come through on Tuesday to pick up the trash. But instead, he just politely in the middle of the night moved everybody's trash can up to the end of the street.
Let me ask you this. Was his can, did he drag his can into 16th or did he leave it up by its house?
Oh, no, he took it because he said they don't like him. Trash people won't pick up his trash because they don't like him.
They don't have that option.
They pick up a lot of trash for people they don't like. I mean,
I'm just telling you what the man told me. He said that was an issue. He took his up to 16th Street and told me that he was going to take that fence down or that thing down so that people could come through and pick the trash up like they've been doing for the last 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And now he didn't do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to the trash people and see what's going on. And Yeah. It's an ongoing saga, but yeah, I talked to the mayor and his wife a couple of days. Former mayor, excuse me, former mayor. A couple
Former
days.
mayor.
He's mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, former, no disrespect, but
None at all, not at all. Title for
Yeah.
life.
yeah, he
He
did.
deserves it.
He did call, and he's concerned like I am about it. I mean, I understand where the people are going, where they don't want people going in that property at night and dropping cans and bottles and breaking them. And, they take their dogs around to the little brick house. But in the meantime, you've cut off what we have been used to having for over 50 years down there, I would say, picking up trash. I mean, that's a little much.
All right.
Okay. We'll look into that one tomorrow.
Thank you. The next item of business is to review the agenda for next week. Van, you want to go through it real quick?
Hold on. Let me pull it up real fast.
I got it up if you want me to go through it.
Yeah. While you can pull it up and I'll just supplement. I'll just go back into the folder real fast.
Okay, so we've got the 2 emergency ordinances next week that we have to update. We're on a 30-day schedule for the mask and again, for the way we're handling the meetings, which is slowly coming to an end in both of those ways, for both of them. Van, are you gonna be able to update or after the meeting, excuse me, after the retreat? What we determined is we really don't need to do anything to our ordinances to allow somebody to keep entering this way in the future, but that's a conversation we still need to have, but we're.
Yeah, I think Charlie was kind of, it was like, yeah, I guess y'all need to maybe internally establish some protocols, just to maybe, set up what, if there are, limits to that, or what maybe their circumstances. It's really about how you, I don't know what's the nice way to say this, being accommodating to each other in terms of what you think should be proper attendance at your meetings. We all have situations where you're going to be out of town, and that's understandable because work-related issues or family-related issues. But I think the feedback I got from some of you is that you just don't want it to become a habit, where people opt to go the virtual route, because there is, some pomp and circumstance to meeting in person and engaging the public, face to face. And I think we're all looking forward to that. We do want everybody back in the room. I don't think, this is not easy.
What did we decide? What did we decide on opening up chambers to the public?
Next month, we are all in the room with staff. Is next month. And the month after that, it's us again, staff, and anybody who's presenting to us. And then the following month, it's wide open.
Gotcha. And
So
just
May,
to give some,
June, July is wide open.
July.
Yep, July is wide open.
and hopefully things stay on this track, because I'll give you some good news I pulled earlier from the Island Packet. Unfortunately, they don't release the, infection rate percentage anymore. I don't know why they don't give that number, but over 40% of Beaufort County residents over the age of 15 have now been vaccinated or had at least their first shot. And I would bet that if that was partialed out into age groups, that percentage is probably a lot higher in the, at-risk age groups. I imagine that because it's 41% from 15 to up. So I bet if you're looking at, 65 and up, 70 and up, that is probably in the 70, 85, 90% vaccinated. Our weekly average for infections in Beaufort County today is 7.9. And we had 4 reported cases today in Beaufort County. So
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that the demographic that's most likely to attend a council meeting is probably fully vaccinated.
As I was saying, I mean, they give that number 15 and up, but it's like, I'm sure if that was in age groups, that percentage is probably a lot higher as you go up in the age groups.
Yeah, and that's why I think we need to be prepared for the May meeting for this mask ordinance to be switched to a resolution strongly recommending at that point. I think this may be the last of the mandatory. in my mind, I feel like if we can get it over that 50% mark, then we should just be strongly recommending for another couple more months until more vaccines are out there. Okay, then we've got a first reading ordinance. Everybody's seen it. It amending the, excuse me, my screen just moved. The coastal resiliency overlay, which we've had some presentations on, and the fill standard. Both of those are going to come to us next week for first reading.
Correct. And as far as coastal resiliency, you've got the summarization, but what they're looking at there, almost like with the noise, they're looking for a disclosure by real estate agents that potential buyers need to be aware of sea level rise issues for potentially impacted properties. So it's a disclosure so that everyone has an understanding that this could potentially happen where they're located. And as you all know, the most recent FEMA flood maps came out as well. So those are all things that everybody's aware of. And if you do have flood insurance, I suggest you check the new maps and consult with your insurance agent or your carrier for flood insurance.
Correct.
And thank you, Linda, for the brief.
Yes. We've got a resolution 2-20-21. It's a resolution regarding non-discrimination of the basis of disabilities as established by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act as amended by the American Disabilities Act of 1990. We have a resolution 3-20-21, a fair housing resolution required for the CDBG grants and funds. We've got our appointments. We've already kind of been through this tonight. We got the Metro Planning Commission 1, Redevelopment Commission 2 appointments for that. And on next week's, we've got an appointment, important date of Tuesday, April 20th for the Redevelopment Commission. Any questions about the agenda? Anything you'd like to see added? The one thing we did ask Van to see if we could get the Spanish Moss Trail group to present. If they can, everybody won't have any concerns about adding that, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Very good.
And did I hear Van say about an update from Gregos? Was that this meeting or May?
I may be able to get them to come next week.
Okay.
May get them to come and the information that we need to provide as well.
Mm-hmm. So that may be an executive session for contract negotiations.
Sure.
And then something publicly. All right, we've got some important dates. Tuesday, April 13th, Park and Rec meeting, 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, April 14th is our regular council meeting, as we've just talked about. And that completes our agenda for tonight. Anybody have any business they'd like to bring forward? Chief, you got anything you want to add? Okay.
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
Real quick, I'll brag on Chief and the police. Daryl and I were with them yesterday. They were recognized by Hopeful Horizons in town for their work. This month is Sexual Assault Prevention Month and awareness, and they were presented with a nice a plaque, and just kind of Hopeful Horizons really pointed out the great job that our police do here in Port Royal when it comes on that issue, and not just awareness, but prevention. So just to kind of brag on them for a minute.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Daryl, Kevin, for going to that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We've got, you know what's missing on an important date? Isn't there a grand opening on Friday or a reopening Friday morning for the Port Royal? What is it called?
Oh, shoot. If you hadn't asked me that, I'd know it.
Right.
Hold on.
Battery.
The village at Battery Creek.
Thank you, Kevin. Village at Battery Creek, grand opening on Friday.
Correct.
Yep.
At noon.
At
Noon.
noon.
Noon time. I know a few of you are planning on going. Thanks again for doing that. There's no other business. Thank you, everybody, for tonight participation. See everybody soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.